so much.
But that's the thing with me, it's just like, if I guess with my focus. But then for the next couple of like, there's the fact that I had so very, just like. Other part which is to be much to don't have a okay. Yeah, that's what you're
Oh, really?
I think it. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Figure out, open and forefront.
Oh my God.
It is. It's not too far from me, but like, literally like, I want to stand up and it's good. And then,
So you were okay, your part is.
yeah, and I just gotta think back, but then a few days later, like a week and a half later.
That's so.
And there's another one over there, but it's no local. Alright, so this is it, bro. You looking for your phone? What's that, a meeting? It's like a presentation, you feel me? And it's screwed.
I'm like, what did you bring?
Good to have a beer.
Good to see you, brother. That was that, man.
You took down. Just
Last night.
last night.
How you doing, man? How everybody?
Everybody was waiting patiently and I was trying to get them to go to this.
Man.
They're like, nah. You're not here.
So good.
Yeah, so we can get started,
Yeah,
because everybody's been waiting and
yeah, sorry about that, you know.
here's some water if you want some. Oh, yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
Tongo.
you, yeah, man.
How's that been?
It's beautiful, man. It's also insane, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's like a parallel universe, bro. Like you get rewired on some other shit, you know? Like right now, I'm tweaking, like, feel like my arm is missing, you know what I'm saying?
Echo, I don't think you need echo. We don't need.
All right, so we're gonna use this microphone because I'm recording the conversation. As you know, we're gonna be publishing this as a chapbook as a part of our Chicana from the Underground series. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So let me just, does that sound good to everybody?
That's good.
All right. All right, so there's no need to do like a formal introduction, so everybody already knows who you are, Tongo. So thank you so much for coming to our space. I mean, you're always like, you know, every time you're in LA, you come here and we do some things. So I'm just really happy that we have that kind of like friendship and, you know, just really happy that you're here. So thank you for coming out, and everybody here, thank you for your patience. So, yeah, that's how LA is. I'm sure you every time you come to LA, you probably remember like, damn, I have to be on the 405 and then get on the 105 and then get on this. Yeah, so let's get started. I am Diva Padilla. I'm the owner of Laureate here at this space that's been around for almost 3 years. Thank you, thank you. So this is a part of our series called Notes from the Chicana Underground. And basically the idea behind the series is to have these kind of like informal conversations with artists, thinkers, writers, poets, compas, which is, Tongo is a compa, he's considered. You know, he's invited to the carne asada whenever, you know, we want to have him around. He's you know, he's definitely one of us. We consider him one of us because he has been in solidarity with us Chicanos, and you know, it's difficult to be you know, Chicanos, we have it hard. We have it very hard because we have to make our own spaces. We have to make our own kind of like culture and things like that because it's hard to find those spaces here in LA, in the United States, anywhere. It's like really hard to find Chicano spaces. So thank you, Tongo, for that. So this is the second episode. We are gonna be recording it. We are recording it right now, and then we're gonna be publishing it into a chapbook as a part of our series. So thank you, Tongo. So where can we start? There's so much about you. I feel like I know about you, like I can read about you, I can look you up, but there's still like so much mystery behind Tongo. There's certain things you don't want to talk about, and that's fine. You don't want to divulge into your past. But I do kind of want to get a little bit about like your upbringing, your childhood. I've met your mom, she's super cool. And just kind of like what do you feel like made you the person that you are? That can be open to interpretation. You don't have to give me your whole life story, but like what do you feel is like a big thing in your life that really has driven you to come this far?
Right on. Long time ago, long time ago, when I was a young whippersnapper. I think, if there's anything that's kind of helpful for anyone, who is either preoccupied or even plagued by, intentional upbringing and, village making. I'm basically what gets coughed up by like I'd say a fairly radical village. I think what got or what gets kind of underestimated when we evaluate history, though there was a huge loss in that kind of that heightening of the 60s, where you had these beautiful, sophisticated internationalist revolutionary movements and revolutionary organizations, though they kind of not materially, but like, politically, even militarily lost the struggle. And they were, fighting to win. They believed, there was going to be a revolutionary government in 5 years, and you know what I mean, and that they would, in the same way that you had these successful wars for liberation around the world, there would be, a liberatory epoch brought into the United States as well through struggle. They lost, but what remained was this, almost in a way, a culture successfully transformed, so that while we didn't have the same kind of like force in place, the consciousness didn't just evaporate. So I was raised by these kind of veterans of that revolutionary struggle, also coupled with the San Francisco Bay Area power plant. So it's been, counter culture, and almost counter structure. It's funny, man, somebody was just asking me about San Francisco a long time ago, the San Francisco of a long time ago. And I just remember the sense that now, that's not to say that the same contradictions that played everywhere in late stage imperialism played San Francisco, and our internal contradictions were just as steep as anywhere else. But I feel like I got the sense that the people really ran things, that, the obstacle course was authored by the people, down to the school I went to, which was like a little freedom school, to where I'll go when I get out of school, the Western Addition Cultural Center, or they call it the African American Arts and Culture Complex now. But so it was, it was what I got at home, but it also like the kind of the politics and the consciousness was also reflected in what I attended and what I went to. And though, I still had to, fight my way down the street to everybody, Uh, it actually doesn't take a lot, or it doesn't take a completely transformed institutional experience to provide enough kind of cushioning or even what's the word, inoculation, to give me a baseline that, no, throughout life, though I never was like, I am the picture perfect, revolutionary from start to finish. Like, right. That I took my nihilistic detours. Just like most people, my sense of right from wrong remained intact. And also whenever whenever because we all get a sense of like, well, this is just unfair. Everybody knows things are messed up. It doesn't matter, you don't have to know dialectical materialism or, surplus value or, colonization. You don't need to know these words to just know that my life is messed up and the life of my peoples is messed up. The little head start I get though is when I come to that conclusion, I have a little bit more of vocabulary to express it. That's is qualitatively better in that it is a vocabulary geared towards action, as opposed to a vocabulary that's, that kind of actually is geared towards acceptance. And so, yeah, I would just say like being raised by kind of people that just didn't, and then also in general, just like did not respect. I mean, when you're basically enemy of these institutions, there along with that is a kind of like a healthy lack of respect for institution, which gives you more of an independent, autonomous spirit, or it set me on a path to where I wasn't looking for these avenues of identity or definition or a sense of just like self or a gauge or evaluation of what I'm doing. I don't care about these paradigms of, you know, whatever the bourgeois prescription is, you know what I mean? Because it's like having a really healthy self outside of the institutional picture. It helped, it helped me as an artist, definitely as an organizer, and just as a friend, you know what I mean? Or because I'm not, like, not to say that, oh, I'm just like free from my own ambition and none of that. But I am like free from individualism in a way. And I do take other people's problems very personally. And I take other people's injustice very personally. And so I think, and they were in it to kind of to in conclusion, but to bring it back, like that was intentionally structured for me. Even when it's not like there was like, okay, we are the Revolutionary Mother Brigade and we are going to have our kids do X, Y, and Z. But there were these, kind of like informal groups kind of starting. It's just like, okay, oh, that, there is something going over here at the Western District Cultural Center, let's send them all over there. Or there was this dojo, the Larkins, man, Jim Larkin, rest in peace. It was like a father and three sons, and the Jim, the father, he used to train Black Panthers, train Fruits of Islam, and he was still training people. So they sent us all to him, So if like it doesn't always have to be, we don't always have to think of like, okay, we got to figure out the perfect instrument of protest or the perfect, even instrument of propaganda. Just like, a living kind of like, you know, a living formation that is just constantly on the search for, you know, kind of like revolutionary expression. That pretty much explains, you know, why I am the tragic, the tragic wandering campaigner for movement.
So it kind of sounds like, I mean, I love what you just said. I'm not even gonna try to add on to that, but I think what I hear is spiritually, it's just really important to be on point. Like you can read Marx, you can read Engels, you can read whatever, but at the end of the day, like you have to kind of be open to kind of see the suffering of others and see what they want, what they need, and kind of allow yourself to look in there without your ego being in the way of what you're trying to accomplish. So how do you yourself, like how do you keep yourself kind of grounded? Because there's so many forces. I mean, I personally speaking, when I was fighting against the corporation here, I mean, it brought so many things, forces out of the woodwork that I would have never imagined that I would be going through. And that really put me in a place where I had to be like, okay, I have to really be like, I don't want to say pure, but I have to be absolutely willing to give myself up to this kind of like greater consciousness where I know that every step I take is in the right direction and isn't being swerved. So how do you stay in touch with that? What do you do? How do you, I mean, how do you contend with that?
I don't know if it's always successful, man, but I think so well actually, you know, we actually have a lot more capacity when we don't evaluate ourselves in capitalist hegemonic terms. And I think that's even a mistake that was made by like beautiful revolutionaries in the past. But the idea that it's, you know, just the evaluation of output and you know, you are worth what you put in. And we have to be mindful of that because, you know, we like hegemony or seeing ourselves the way our oppressors see us, or seeing the world the way our oppressors see the world, has really been like, has been beat into us, has been like candy coated and fed to us, has been incentivized, has been coerced. That like that is, you know, most like the imperialist project. Because you know, Amilcar Cabral in this beautiful essay speech, National Liberation and Culture says, you know, a colonizer does one of two things, or one and then the other: kills everyone, and or uh, uh, beats into everyone their culture. And so the more we, you know, identify with their value system, the easier we are to control. And you know, we see this in spades in the so-called United States. And a lot of great revolutionary thinkers have warned us, you know, when you come into a revolutionary process, you have to mind all your counter-revolutionary ways of living and working and relating things that you bring in there. So, you know, always, you know, what has to be built into movement collectively are healthy and even gentle processes of evaluation to like, okay, why exactly are we all frustrated in this room right now? Or why, you know, why are we all anxious, or and when things get healthier collectively, when processes get healthier, you actually find that you have access to more power. Also for me, meditation has been crucial. Interestingly, similar to, kind of like good collective evaluation of where we're at, just it adds more space. So I don't have to be so reactive. Or even if my thoughts can still, or at this point, I've given up on controlling them. They're going to do what they do. But the way I react to them is I can help that. So I don't have to like go down a rabbit hole of energy that's not conducive to any kind of collective health, let alone revolutionary practices. I have an extra, and really it's interesting. All you need is a couple seconds to reset yourself to deal with the problem. So I'll say, or whatever what might help others to think of just any kind of practice of internal cultivation. It just makes you kinder to yourself and others. Whatever that looks like for you, for me, it's like, a good little meditation practice, but whatever that is for you, that goes a long way, because it really, it's kind of when you said, the empathy and compassion. I think that's what like Che Guevara was talking about, like this guided by great feelings of love. So in a way, it really is all supposed to cooperate, because it's really it's operating from your true self. That's how we're built. Talking to my brother right here, trying to give a 2-second debrief on new fatherhood. I have a 4-month-old daughter, and I've got so many lessons in this first 4 months. One major one is that we really are supposed to be in a healthy, kind society, world. Like, we come out, like babies, we come out super cool. You know what I mean? Like, as long as we're not, it's like, as long as she's not in some kind of pain or discomfort, her baseline is just curiosity and touch. You know what I mean? It's so, but what awaits her is this mountain of genocidal, hegemony and conformity that, would have her kind of like twist her psyche to fit into. But it's completely unnatural, So, back to what we can do intentionally, it's like, man, processes that get us in tune with our true self. That can also be cultural. I mean, I would never throw away the materialism, right? I would never throw away the analysis, but we also can find the path to our true selves also through our various non-European cultures, you know what I mean? Because these kind of lessons, or even this kind of necessary humor, is all, it's throughout all kind of is in the cosmology of all these peoples that we emerge from. So yeah, the
The end. All right. Well, let's switch over to your poetry, because that's what you are. You're a poet. You chose poetry as a way to kind of like bring these ideas into the world, and you've really made a mark on San Francisco, LA. I mean, you've traveled to Mexico, you've gone to Amsterdam, and what brought you to poetry? What connected you to wanting to put yourself out there in that way. You could have been a professor, you could have been, you know, a jazz musician, like you could have been anything, Tongo. Why poetry?
And, you know, I could have done, I could have done a few things, but like poetry is ultimately what I'm wired for. Just because really from, you know, from the beginning, like, I just remember, you know, like I would hear it from a super early age, like, you know, and then interestingly, like back to the, you know, back to origin stories. So, you know, this little freedom school I went to, it was, you know, we did African drumming, we didn't do do re mi, you know, and we did the Langston Hughes poems and, you know, just reciting them for no reason in the morning. You know what I mean? So like, you know, exposing, exposing our kids to, you know, to true art, to people's art is crucial in that, like my mind just started responding to it with lines. I would hear it and then I just would kind of do it. So it's almost like it's like my earliest intellectual offering, or my earliest attempt to communicate beyond my immediate environment, you know, to kind of to speak back to the general, like, you know, the mass imagination. Um, and it was also what felt the most viscerally different. Like, you know, even as like a little kid, when they say, oh, write a little, you know, the little assignment in school, like I felt my mind moving differently. It was almost a physical experience and therefore almost a fate. Now, I am a firm believer that poetry is not necessarily like you can get a head start, you can have certain knacks. I'd actually argue that back to the empathy and the compassion is actually the foundation because it's like, you know, to express someone else's uh, or to analyze someone else's personal territory from the space of from the space of entering their consciousness is, you know, is really where, you know, almost, or let me put it a different way, like selfless analysis makes for the most musical lines, or an analysis that is not to settle your own personal scores, uh, is really, you know, access to that like musical stream of consciousness. Um, but you know, along with that, you can have a certain knack for, you know, there are different knacks, like you know, just there are symmetries of language. Some words just bounce together. Um, you know, having a little bit more of a relaxed posture, a little bit more dreamlike, you know, engagement, which also comes back to like how you try to codify yourself. Because if I'm just bouncing off, like if I'm analyzing everything I'm looking at for validation of who I decided to be in this hegemony, well then it's limited. But if I'm, you know, if I enter the analysis of anything with nothing kind of nothing individually at stake, well, the reality itself is very mathematically interesting. And so there are these senses that you can have a head start, but ultimately, like everybody can be a pretty good poet. So I, you know, I like to say like, like I didn't choose poetry, poetry chose me. But you know, no, I just had a little bit of a head start. But it actually, my primary identity, probably the majority of my adult life has not been like the public assertion of poetry, I was like a youth worker, case manager, program coordinator, teacher in the alternative school for many, 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 many moons. And in a way, I think, that might also be some actionable intel. I think this also gave me a kind of a healthier mind to then, to then try to write poetry from, in that a life of the mind that has that is anonymous, even being like I was also like just a kind of a committed organizer first. And so, when all you're gonna do for the next 2 months is knock on every door and say, man, we need a human rights investigation of this county jail over here. Like, especially in these days where like we're not with the Malcolm X paradigms right now. So it's like I'm going into this anonymous and I'm coming out of this anonymous. I'm going into this classroom anonymous, I'm coming out of this classroom anonymous. I mean, along the way, there'll be the specific people I worked with or the specific people I talked to. They'll be like, man, he was cool. Well, I learned a lot, but ultimately it's not geared for, it's not geared towards kind of a fame beyond who you work with. And therefore there's like two things. There's no cheating, right? Because it's not like a reputation that will precede you. You have to earn it. You have to be a true transformative effect, person to person to person, right? There's nothing that will precede you, or you know what I mean. No one will just take your word for it. You have to earn every conversation, every second in the classroom, every struggle you're involved in. This puts me, or anyone who goes about life that way, in one, it requires a humility. And two, it requires a lot more effort. And it requires this kind of commitment to practice. That look, nothing is happening in a vacuum. And also to kind of have like a teacher's mind is also good for craft, because I, I've always maintained that it's you have good poems that teach you something, then you have great poems in which the poet is just teaching themselves something in front of us. And so this kind of this honest search for insight is a huge strength, would be a huge strength later. So, I mean, all that to say there, certain combinations, I would say the upbringing as well, really, because again, it's interesting, like confrontation with the state is dreamy. You know what I mean? And is like, because it's like I'm moving according to something I can't see yet, you know. And so, it all kind of adds up. But it's something I really did not predict. I really had no sense of. It's funny, man. If I met, pull let you behind the curtain. Like I had no idea what any of this was. Like if you was to tell me back that like you're gonna be a poet, like poetry, you're gonna be a poet or go be a poet, I would not know where. Like I knew where a slam was. I go to a poetry slam and have, and then you can kind of be under the wing of curators within the little slam world, but like I would not have found here, you know. Or any of these. So it's like the name of the game is really like one thing leads to another. But again, like just based on the effect I can have on someone that day. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, which is really just like kind of the effect I can have on myself. So it's just, I don't know, I'm just, it keeps me, it's all put, I'm in just like a really honest process at all times. And so in that way, I'm thankful because I didn't even have to sit with the kind of the anxiety of obscurity. Being able to enjoy obscurity is like a great power, or even cook up your style in obscurity is actually a privilege. And so in a way, I think I'm lucky because I baked properly and traveled these roads zealously, you know, no return. You know, like I organized in Mississippi for a couple years, and the only reason why I came back is because my mother was having health problems. They would have to carry like you have to ship my body out of Mississippi. I was so committed to to certain objectives down there. Um, and then it's so, but and I'm, and while I'm down there, some of these poems that I'm kind of known for today, I'm writing them just on the kitchen table at night. No disrespect to my peoples in Mississippi, but for lack of activity. um, and so I that actually, I guess we teased out some more autobiography. It's in this trip home or having to go home to look after my mother. That's through that and through the improvisation, because I'm back on principle, not playing. So I'm just making up things like, hey, let me talk to the dude I used to teach in juvenile hall with. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, you need a job? I'm working at this gateway program at this community college. And okay, now I'm over there but this time around, I used to not even spit poems for kids when I was teaching. I thought they were two different muscles. But I was just kind of just a little bored. So and I wanted to I was like, you know what, I'm about to have some pecking order in here. Let me spit some poems so they know, like, you need to listen to what I have to say about literature, brother. You know what I mean? And then it was tricky. So come to find out, the dude who got me a job, who I used to go to actually the Oakland Juvenile Hall with, he had a small press. And a kid had come up to me and was like, I heard you got good poems. He wasn't taking my class, but he heard the poems. I was like, damn right, I got good poems. And I spit him a poem, who was actually my friend again, who got me the gig, was sitting there. He's like, I got a small press. You want to do a book? Let's do a book. Put the book together. From that book, I had like 3 readings. There was my book release. That was really just family and friends and a couple people who he convinced to come. And then the other 2 readings were openings for his other 2 authors that he was putting out. In those crowds was the next kind of tier of curation that just, oh, you should read it. What you doing next Wednesday? Come to mine, do a quick set, da da da. And like it was literally built that way. And then you find that, so there's like similar to like the theory of the 6 degrees of separation. So right. So the reality is that we're all 6 degrees of separation from anyone on the planet, right? Well, what they found was, what they scientifically found was that it's not because the great anarchy of relationships makes it so. What happens is there's that one person who knows everybody. And so similarly, there will be that one person who curates everything. You know, who works with this venue and that venue, or whenever these people want some poets, they ask them, right? And so, eventually you get on the radar of one of these people, and they're like, hey man, everything I get my hands on, I'm throwing you in it. Get a couple of those type people, and it just continues to balloon and balloon. But again, this is all just based on, not the grit, but again, just the outlook, or maybe even the what has become nature. Like, I'm gonna go earn it. Like, I'm gonna go, even in the course of a reading, like, all right, I'm gonna go get this poem right now. I'm throwing myself all the way in, or even this line, this stanza, right? Or figuring out, or sitting there like, wait, why in this second am I not all the way in? Let me start to correct that, and let me see what happens. And it just grows. So it's like, really, you know, that's what happened. This is how I am a poet to a certain readership. But at the same time, I'm not it's funny. I've seen the big time, man. I'm nowhere, I just have enough of a little slice of the world playing along. I would not say I would not say anything like I don't know, maybe after I'm gone or something, uh it might turn a corner, and it might spread even greater, but definitely not in the big leagues. And I've seen the big leagues, man. I've seen it. I know, you know, there are people like that just, But then again, it's what you consider. It's really like a bourgeois big leagues. There's not too many people who really whose poetry really has a life with the people, or unless it's like, oh geez, like the last poets. Hey, the last poets, they can still go anywhere and get love in a grassroots way, in a real people way, but you know. So I mean, there's just some people who don't live as anxiously, but yeah, that's what it is.
That's what happened. All right. So all that, you got into poetry, you started coming out with your books and kind of like making a name for yourself. And then you decided to become a publisher. So how did that decision come into play, trying to, take kind of like what you already had and start to kind of put on other people who were also kind of on the same tip as you were? And you've helped several people. We have some of the books here from people that you published, like Reina J. Leon, Landon Smith, and Norman Antonio Zelaya. So what's been your mission behind that, or what was your thinking behind putting out books and getting into that world?
It's funny. There's really like multiple origin stories, and I guess that's how it goes in life in general. In a lot of ways, like you get these different signs, or you get these different problems, and the solution is all the same. So in a kind of just in a comrade sense, there'd be all these, so as things, as the world started playing along a little bit with my poetry, some people would ask me like, oh, well, how, for some advice. And it could be, just general advice, or, let me pick your brain on this. And, when I'd look at the situation, and I'll just like, you don't need advice, you just need a break, you know? And so one just, to be just, I mean, just like I was a very informal, I had a very informal and down to earth entrance into, into this poetry thing. Like, I know it doesn't actually take a lot. And, especially because poetry is not a commercially viable field. So like the top is not that far from the bottom. So you can get on, I could just be of help. You can actually be of all, I'd say of all the arts, a small publisher could actually be the greatest help a poet ever gets. Because there's also like this, bourgeois psychology. Like I could, like these poems, even if they were just published by me, would get a different, like if I took my poems and just made a, you know what I mean? Like made a chapbook, like a, a lot of these places would not have me, It's almost like a college degree. Like someone, it doesn't, a degree does not reflect what you know or even what you know how to do. But that paper is like, okay, now it's like the totem you have to bring. Or really it's like, you have to show that you say you're willing to sacrifice yourself on the bourgeois altar. You know what I mean? You're willing to play along with systemic prescriptions. And so it's funny. Somebody like a person could never have even heard of the press, but just seeing a little barcode, right, that doesn't say published by the author, you know what I mean? Just seeing the little barcode and, $10 in the United States, $8 in Canada, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, now we can submit you, to any residency or fellowship or, whatever the next, or gig or whatever. So that was one, just to be of real help. Cause I just felt corny. Oh yeah, what you can do is just do this and that. Like, no, bro, like here, right. Here's your nice barcode. Again, one thing can lead to another for you. And so that was one. Two, to pan out to the macro picture, I think or back to our war with the bourgeoisie, I wanted to more than just like, okay, have my yes, you can have the most beautiful revolutionary poems in the world that can have a huge impact on the consciousness of thousands or even millions of people, but the bourgeoisie's power is in their capture or their control of production. And the fact you have to go to them if you want something produced, right? So kind of in my little way, just a little capture of the means of cultural production was also objective. And it's supposed to be expanding objective, you know what I mean? More and more putting together people structure to facilitate the reality that we're all supposed to, what we're supposed to be swimming in, a revolutionary reality, liberated territory. And especially in this kind of settler colonial project, like the territory, like is institution, is production. So that was another one. Then there was a poet named Q.R. Hand Jr. and he finally got his book out after a while. But he was like, man, he was this a giant's giant, man. And kind of like the genius who got away. Like you could have put him in the ring with any of these greats, any of these radical greats. But he just, he kind of he remained a little, or a lot more obscure than what he should be. But anyway, we became friends, and I was like, what's up? Why do you only have one book? And he was like, well, I probably got some stuff, gold, like it actually was like I don't want to describe his living situation. Let's just say I went to a corner and there were boxes and boxes of writing. So I was like, well, man, let me just go through these boxes and I'll just pull out a book. I bet you I could find, a book's worth of stuff. So he was like, knock yourself out. And then, so I'm starting to put these things together our conversation became like, well, why don't you just put it out? Like him talking to me, like, why don't you just, really, as opposed to, giving it to lukewarm hands, let's just keep it in your hands. So that was another kind of need that the press saw to work on behalf of him. And then one more, I was working with these lifers in this prison in Miami. And man, these poets were super cold. And I was trying to get, my first instinct was like, all right, let me try to get your work to someone that is down there along the way. It's like, man, I should just put these cats out myself too. So, kind of on behalf of, to get incarcerated writers out was also objective. So, and then it came all the way together when I teamed up with a sister named Allie Jones, and it's funny because we had already been working on things. It's weird, you meet someone and you just know you're gonna do a lot of work with them, but it's unclear what exactly. So there was like all kind of little false starts. You know what I mean? Like we worked, one of our favorite failed endeavors was during the George Floyd uprisings, contradictions caused by patriarchy seem to be the most dangerous or the most implosive element in those organizing efforts, right? And so we were like, let's put together a kind of like a conversation circle with, you know what I mean? Let's bring everybody to the table and figure out how we can, just have these kind of healing conversations to resolve. Healing circle to resolve. It didn't last that long. But it didn't last long just because it was, this was all, I think this was still, there wasn't even a vaccine yet. So this is all going on Zoom. It's difficult. But, so we had these, we already, like, there was that fate of working together, just, the press became like, oh, and so, yeah, man, I think we're like 4 years deep now. Yeah.
So what books are coming out? Are any new titles coming up soon or?
Yes. So the QR handbook, Out of Nothing, the release is next month. I believe the 23rd, I want to say, somewhere in the week of the 20th. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We also have I just don't have a good memory for these type of things, strangely, or it hits me like in increments. When We Excel is an anthology of Black women writing that we have coming out, and a book by a cat named Christopher Mallett, who's doing life in prison. Is coming out. It's called Pendulum Under a Dead Clock. And I feel like we got one or two more in the queue. Oh, we're reissuing For the People, which is actually more of an academic book, a survey of African socialism in the Western Hemisphere. We're doing like a reissue, and more will come to me later in this conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Tongo. You just gave us, I mean, you answered like all my questions in just like 3 blocks. I had so many questions about everything. There's other things I want to ask you about, but I just want to be mindful of everybody's time because I did say it would end at 2:30, and we're gonna go a little bit beyond that. So if that's okay, I'm just gonna ask a couple more questions and then we can close it up. So thank you for everything you just said about becoming a publisher. I commend you for the work that you're doing because I do agree with you that like if it doesn't already exist, the bourgeoisie is just like snorting at it, just kind of looks at it like, oh, that's nothing important. But we have to take it upon ourselves to become an institution. And I mean, it's a good thing because we're left to do whatever we want. But at the same time, we have to suffer more for it because we're not getting like, you know, the financial aspect of just giving in to what they want. So I think that the work that you're doing is super important, and I thank you for that. And also for letting me be a part of it too. I helped you copy edit some of these, so thank you for letting me be a part of that process too. So back to just to switch gears a little bit more about you know, I consider you to be a compa, which means like somebody that we consider to be in solidarity with Chicanos and Mexicanos. I know you went to Mexico recently, and I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on like what do you see us having in common, like Chicanos, Mexicanos, and Black folks? Like, where do you see like a point of us being able to work together or like understanding each other a little bit, or understanding ourselves a little better, especially under the circumstances that we're all in? Like, we're all pretty much in a bad position. We're not in power. We're not, you know, we don't have great voices out there that are speaking out for us or speaking for us, especially in this time of genocide and in Palestine and the border and all these things that really like are a part of who we are. What would you say? What are some of the things? I just kind of want to get like all your thoughts on this because I know I can just give you the mic and you can just go off. So just like this solidarity that we have with each other, like what do you think are some of the things that we need to focus on or that are important, that we should like really be solidifying? What do you think about that?
Yeah, really, it doesn't even require one of those. My own, we provide soliloquies. It's super straightforward. What from day one? Tell me what warehouse are we not both the majority in? You know, I mean, California is especially an expression of this. Like we are all in, like we all start off in the same fucked up public schools, you know, we go to the same fucked up juvenile halls and we end up in the same fucked up prisons and we work the same fucked up jobs, you know what I mean? Like we have, I'm not gonna like, you know, to either any peoples of either ilk of different sensitivities. You don't want to say it's not exactly the same. It's the fucking same enough. You know what I mean? To see that we occupy the same social position, which is that of permanent enemy of the United States, permanent enemy of the white ruling class. I don't know what else they have to show us, you know. So us, you know, occupying this same position, never mind just, you know, the kind of like, never mind standing as, you know, just non-white people, you know. or of non-white culture. It's just like, man, like they literally are trying to kill and incarcerate all of us, have no regard for the life of any of us, any of our children, infants. You know, that's why I made that man dance. You know, I went down, you know, I went to South Texas like twice on principle. I didn't even know who I was gonna talk to, but it's just like, bro, what do you mean? 3-year-olds in dog kennels? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how I could even call myself an adult, knowing that there are toddlers in cages by themselves, right? Incarcerated, and not go try to intervene or help whoever is intervening. And that goes for the same, you know what I mean? You know, for for any, you know, whatever your kind of like chapter in these or chapters in these genocides are, we need to be intervening in each other's struggles. And also, I don't like we can't be ahistorical. The precedent is there. That's how we were. We were already together. We already, you know, it was internationalist solidarity was the, you know, and internationalist solidarity was you know, could get you killed. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, we'll help populate your event or da da da. It's like, yes, here, I will help you. I don't want to give up too much, but fuck it, man. Statutes of limitation, and I literally wasn't there. I wasn't alive yet, but I will help you run these guns. I will help you bust your peoples out of prison. I will take your people in after they escape. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we come from. That's what and even the way people put their, you know, like you think the Black Panthers came up with that came up with that praxis and came up with that their style even from just looking at black struggle. Speaking of guys that they were not to, just for lack of a better verb, like they lifted a lot from Palestinian movements. It's especially you know, like the questions of like women in struggle and this type of thing. Like it was like no, like you know, like in Palestine, it's like it's all hands on deck. Like these lessons, they you know directly pulled from. You know, I mean everybody's in Cuba. You know, the Vietnamese are in Cuba. You know what I mean? Like so, uh, I just in a way it boggles the mind that we've kind of been lulled into these conflicts and contradictions that are not even fucking natural, and not historical, you know? And you know, I think it also like similarly though, we fight amongst ourselves. So it's also unnatural the way you will have, you know, black on black, brown on brown. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all this really, it's all an insanity. But you know, like, yeah, man, I just don't I see no evidence why we are not, you know, even closer than siblings in struggle and just in the human journey. You know, like when I read, you know, man, so when I was in Mexico, um, you know, beautiful revolutionaries down there and heroic, man, you know, because they don't have that like organizing to get you killed down there. So it's not like, oh, a path to celebrity that some of this kind of weird bourgeois organizing has become up here. You know, so it's like very, very heroic, you know, people like I was with um this one sister, she was um, you know, so this is all supposed to be an art move. These are dancers, but like the dancer, she's also like one of the leaders of the Afro-Mexican movement, trying to get it put on the their struggle was trying to just get it put on the census. You know, just getting that name put on the census. Another sister was a dancer, was literally went around with the mothers of the disappeared, literally helping people, you know, through that process, literally digging up these mass graves, you know, like, so this, you know, just like, I went to the square where they murdered all those students. I'm blanking on the name. And what was it? Yeah, exactly. And uh, and was with one of the survivors of that massacre. Like, got told the real story from that day, you know what I mean? Where these pigs was shooting from the rooftops, and they was also in the crowd themselves, pretending to be protesters, and then like shooting people to the side of them. Like, it was just, you know, and but then also hearing the history of these organizers, like, okay, they were technically students, but they were actually the children of radical farm workers, and how that lineage kind of formed their practice, and then also how these students also, I mean, I don't know, nobody wanted to confirm nor deny, but that lineage actually continues into the Zapatista, some of the original Zapatista organizers, you know. So I was just like, you know, just really beautiful. And then I did a whole political education on extrajudicial killing up here of Black people, and they were completely locked in. You know, had my groovy translation going. You know what I mean? You know, and they were like, you know, man, beyond, we were co-conspirators. You know, and so, you know, and we were also, it was so funny because there's this place called Casa Technico, and I'm blanking on the region. It's like an hour, I want to say like an hour south of Mexico City. It's this beautiful, these cats, they have like, it's like a people's kind of community garden farm, but it's also like this cultural center where, you know, people come, they like people come every, like they show a documentary every night, you know, on various struggles. And it was so, it was so cool. Oh, I got so many little anecdotes, man. But I don't, we don't have time. We started late. Um, but man, it was so funny. One day the dude was like, Tongo, I got an assignment for you. Can you write, we're all writing solidarity statements and videoing the solidarity statements, but they were for like fucking some peoples in Indonesia. You know what I mean? That's what they were on, you know, real internationalism, you know. So I don't know. To me, it's just like, you know, it's almost like, you know, like you might get the question like, well, how do you, you know, how do you keep up your revolutionary endurance? He's like, man, because just giving in, giving up is more exhausting. You know what I mean? And I would say the same thing for like, you know, internationalism, like, or it's unnatural to not, you know? So that's kind of, the that's my mentality, or even deeper than the mentality. I don't know, that's just, that's like what my blood says, you know? And I know it's easy, you know, cats, you know, or it's easy to slip into contradiction, you know. That's not to say like, you know, but I don't know, at a certain point, we can't even do this by ourselves. You're not gonna have just like the Black Revolution that's gonna get to the finish line. You're not gonna have just the brown revolution that's gonna get to the finish line. You know what I'm saying? Shoot, you gonna even have just the, you know what I mean? Like cause the a lot of them asylum seekers, that wasn't even from Mexico. So let alone the Chicana was, you're not gonna even have like a Chicano revolution that could take care of, Chicanx revolution is gonna take care of everything. It's gonna be a complete cooperation of all revolutionary peoples, man, to set this thing right. Because the task is not just to carve out something for ourselves. The task is to dismantle this white ruling class. It's to dismantle their apparatus, dismantle their military industrial complex, dismantle their armies, dismantle their prisons, all of that. You're not gonna be able to do none of that sticking to your, sticking to your style. You know what I mean?
All right, Tongo. Well, we're gonna close it up. Thank you so much again for coming to spend some time with us here in LA. I know you have a busy schedule. You're wanted everywhere. People have been put your posters outside of my door. I didn't ask them to, but they're all there. I have tickets to give away to tonight's event at UCLA. So thank you so much. I know you're here only for a little while, but every time you come, it's definitely like, just you always breathe fresh air into everything. So it's always nice to have you. So what's next for Tongo? I know you're a dad now and you're probably super crazy busy more than ever, but you're still active, you're still doing things. So what's next? Are you writing a book or what's going on? What's new for Tongo?
Well, it's funny, actually, I think that I might give the impression of a high artistic outlook just because, like, when I finally get out the house, it's just, but it all happens at once. You know what I mean? But then I go back into this crib and I don't come out, you know what I mean? Or a month, I'm right, literally, or I'm next to the crib. No, I've joined really more kind of my political praxis is what is kind of dominating my time right now, and I've kind of become the political education. I don't know what my title is. Minister of Information. I'm basically coordinating political education for this organization called Community Movement Builders. In a nationwide sense, going to all of the chapters, and trying to get us all on the same page through political education. Community movement builders kind of was one of the vanguard forces against the Cop City in Atlanta struggle, and so that's where it's for that I'm doing most of my homework, or what I'm really coming outside for, because I'm really like, especially like looking at this Gaza uptick in genocide. It's like, okay, well, what should be obvious is that the old ways of kind of solidarity, protest movement, they do a lot, but they did not stop this 6 months ago. So what do we need in place to put up a more effective resistance? We have to get back to the basics of organizing revolutionary forces that don't want to play along with anything, that are appropriate to our true nature of contradiction with the system, whose praxis is based on, politicizing masses, really building active bases, and bringing as many people with a mass character, bringing people into a revolutionary process And we've gotten away from that. We've been bogged down in the single issue struggle, even when that single issue is huge, like the kids in cages, like extrajudicial killing, and still within it, if that's all you do, our powers of organizing actually end up getting absorbed by the system. Because all they have to do is give you a little concession that they often take back later and give you a little concession, and then everybody goes home. And that energy doesn't actually get put into a perpetual process. So that's why I'm kind of just like, okay, like let's start creating these mass organizations or even cadre organizations that are, that are about the complete transformation of society, not just the reform of this little part of the system or that little part of the system. So it's kind of like a back to basics,
All right, so I don't wanna just end just like this. I think most people here are probably not gonna make it out to the UCLA performance tonight. So you might have to give them a little something, like a little poem, so they can know what they're missing out on, so.
I got you. A tour guide through your robbery, I also am. Cigarette saying, look what I did about your silence. Ransom water and box spring gold, this decade is only for accent grooming, I guess. Ransom water and box spring gold, the corner store must die. War games, I guess. All these tongues rummage jump. The start of mass destruction begins and ends in restaurant bathrooms that some people use and other people clean. Are you telling me it's a rag in the sky? Waiting for you, yes. We've written a scene, we set a stage, we should have fit in. Warehouse jobs are for communists, but now more corridor and hallway have walked into our lives. Now the whistling is less playful and the barbed wire overcrowded too, my dear. If it is not a city, it is a prison. If it has a prison, it is a prison, not a city. When a courtyard talks on behalf of military issue, all walks take place outside of the body. Dear life to your left, a medieval painting to your right. None of this really makes an impression. Crop people learning how to live in thin air. You have 5 minutes to learn how to see through this breeze. When a mask goes sideways, barbed wire becomes the floor, barbed wire becomes the roof, 40 feet into the sky becomes out of bounds. When a mask breaks in half, mind which way the eyes go. They killed the world for the sake of giving everyone the same backstory. We're watching Gary, Indiana fight itself into the sky. Old pennies for wind, for that wind feeling you give it for the hood goes up and over your headache. Pennies that stick together, mocking all aspirations. Stuck Together Pennies was the first newspaper I ever read, along with the storefront dwelling army that always lets us down, where the Holy Spirit favors the back room. Souls in a situation that offer 100 ways to remain a loser. Souls watching the clock, hoping their eyes don't lie to sad people. What were we talking about again? The narrator asked the graveyard. Hey, 10 minutes flat, said the graveyard. The funeral only took 10 minutes. Never tell that to anyone again. You just gonna pin the 90s on me? All 30 years of them? Then why should I know the difference between sleep and satire? The pyramid of corner stores fell on our heads. We died right away. That building wants to climb up and jump off another building. These are downtown decisions. Somewhere on this planet, it's August 7th, and we running down the rust thinking one more needs to come with me. What evaporated on Earth so that we could be sent back down? These capitalists eat until the world is blurry to them. These streets are made of saliva. There's some people made of saliva too. They usually got on uniforms. While a crazy man spins round and round trying to make a record out of this mass production jungle, maybe I'll join them, count cash and cry. These streets are made of saliva and white sheets are worn by a building in which kids are supposed to learn how to read well. White sheets on the highway too. Another mirror needs their head on a pike. One down is just one down, but you tell all this to the masses and your teacher will pipeline you. They told me I was jewelry. They told me this is jungle. Well, maybe not jungle, more like 50 machine guns planted in the ground. It's raining faces again in California. What does it say about heaven? What does it say about the people you killed? Waiting lines got so exhausted, a million minds dropped all these faces at once. If the fascists can read the lips of a giant talking in his sleep, we might as well make our demands in prison letters. Today was born the most important trigger finger in the world. Today, I begun counting down the pages between now and a pile of books by Tongo. Chicago is gonna walk out of Chicago one day. Babies are dragged street signs like old toys. Today, the most important letter left prison. Babies are left at flags like faces that have disappeared. Maybe I'll join them. But for now, these streets are made of saliva, and we raise half-full glasses to the basements that meant nothing, and the working poor who live there. We get shot. We get white sheets on California, where the kitchen table likes to talk as much as the walls, and romance on the porch consists of hard residing. I mean, this picture characters talk spit and know that they're hard to kill. The kitchen table knows this. The porch is almost convinced that one down is just one down. This town is coming to town. A circus watching itself. Half distracted, half suicidal, thrilled children dressed as cops, thrilled children preaching and policing and intaking and hiring and snatching money. This town's coming to town with tough trademarks to follow. Today, I watch capitalism walk on water and people play dead so that they could be part of a miracle.
Thank you so much. Big round of applause to Tongo. Thank you so much. Please support Tongo. There's some books here that he published, and feel free to hang out. I don't know how much time you have, but we have him here for at least a couple seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Who's putting together the UCLA?
UCLA.